Hi. I just had a question for you. What do you think of Baxter International shipping live avian influenza virus to multiple locations between December of 2008 and February of 2009?
Which virus are you talking about? The
H5N1.
Okay, great.
I have no knowledge of that. I'm not aware of that situation. But I think what the caller is getting at is the importance of being able to secure these things. I mean, there's the challenge with bioweapons is that biotechnology is so pervasive today for peaceful purposes, for the development of vaccines. But there is also concern that these pathogens could fall into the wrong hands, and that's the worry. I mean, you know, we talk about in 1995 there was a doomsday cult called Aum Shinrikyo in Japan.
Right.
And remember, they released sarin gas into the Tokyo subway system. A number of people died. But that same year, they also tried to attack U.S. installations as well as Japanese government facilities using anthrax, and they were unsuccessful, and botulinum toxin, as a matter of fact, but they were unsuccessful. So this has been tried before. So there is concern, and we still have the 2001 anthrax issue we don't know about. So there is concern that these pathogens be secured, not just here in the United States, but obviously overseas where they might come into the hands of a terrorist organization.
From your vantage point outside the government now, what is your biggest Florida? Jan on our Democrats line.
Yes, I'd like to know what you, or I guess I would like to let the people know. I'm sure you're aware of this if you're in this chemical weapon study. That Bush gave billions of dollars to have someone from DARPA, through DARPA, to develop the 1918 Spanish flu virus several years ago. Gave him $3.some billion. Then they gave him another $3-some billion to develop the vaccine for it again. So we're developing these weapons here in this country through our military. And I just think that's very scary, that you're getting up there saying how, you know, we got to be careful of all these. We're the ones developing all this stuff. We developed the nuclear bomb. We developed all this stuff.
All right, Jan, we'll get a response.
I'm not aware of that accusation. I've not heard that. I mean, I'm aware of the Spanish influenza in 1918. I think 10 million people died from the Spanish influenza, but it wasn't used as a weapon. It was just a virus that was being spread. In fact, I think 500,000 people died here. But the accusation regarding U.S. developing this, maybe a vaccine, I mean, some pathogens are kept alive for the ability to develop vaccines. You have to be able to test those sort of things. But I'm not aware of anybody developing biological weapons, especially the United States. But we may be developing vaccines for them. You know, the U.S. military has a vaccine for anthrax, for instance. So you have to have some of those pathogens to be able to develop the vaccine. But I'm not aware of us developing biological weapons in any large scale.
Somewhat on the idea of developing. Good morning, Rebecca, on our independent line. Hi.
Yes, good morning. In regards to your comment on the previous caller alleging what you said about the 1918 flu, you really need to educate yourself. Listeners, go to pbs.org and get the DVD Killer Flu, which describes how the Army Institute of Pathology, with one of their molecular pathologists, Jeffrey Toffenberger, did in fact go to Alaska and dig up dead bodies of people that died of the 1918 flu, and deconstructed the DNA and then reconstructed it. I also suggest your listeners go to my website, drcarly.com, and read my document, Inoculations, the True Weapons of Mass Destruction. Our country is getting ready to try to force us to be inoculated with vaccines for the swine flu, which is obviously a biological creation. And there is a journalist in Austria by the name of Jane Burgermeister, which has brought criminal charges against the WHO, the UN, Barack Obama, and various other parties for basically aiding and abetting the creation of a vaccine that is going to cause genocide.
Okay, Rebecca, let's hear from our guest.
I mean, let me be clear. I mean, I did say that we do need to develop vaccines to these pathogens. So, but the idea that we were developing large amounts of biological weapons, I think, is unfounded. So, I'm not familiar with that particular story. But the fact is that I know we do develop vaccines to protect our military and also people here in the United States should one of these things sort of break out. But the idea that we're developing Spanish flu as an offensive biological weapon, I think, is unfounded.
Houston, good morning. Last call of this segment. Terry, hi.
Hi there. I was just kind of wondering, I hoped I'd have more time, but I just have a couple of points, just 3 points to make, really for that terrorists use the media to create the propaganda for their killing. The terrorists kill innocent people, And okay, then if we take that, we look at what Judith Miller at the New York Times did when her and Chalabi worked up these lies about Iraq, so we would invade Iraq. We could say, is that a terrorist act? Then if we look at the fact that we have never had a reason to invade Iraq, but yet we went into Iraq, we've killed millions of people, and we never had a reason to do it. There were no WMDs. And the third thing I'd like to say is following up with that last lady said about these vaccinations. You can, as an American, can refuse those vaccinations because the HHS has essentially freed those companies who manufacture the vaccines from liability. So all you have to do is if somebody says you need to go get a vaccination, you can say, well, if this vaccination harms me, can I sue? And if they say no, then you don't have to take it.
All right, Terry, we'll get an answer from our guest.
Well, I think that in terms of this commission, which will be at Heritage this morning at 11 o'clock, they're moving beyond Iraq, and they're talking about terrorism and weapons of mass destruction, these terrible weapons falling into the hands of terrorists and the propensity that they might use them against the United States or others. So they believe there are real challenges out there. I think it's critically important that the American public pay attention to this issue, we not become complacent about our own security, and that we are still in the crosshairs of groups like Al-Qaeda, and if they get their hands on these weapons, I believe that they will use them. The challenge is keeping them out of their hands.
Do you think the fact that we didn't find WMD in Iraq make it a tougher sell on these for people?
It could. I mean, each individual will have their own view of this, but the fact of the matter is that there were 6 countries 10 years ago that had nuclear weapons. Today there are almost 10. There are 9 and 10. There are over a dozen states that have biological weapons. Some of these states have ties to terrorist groups, including Iran and Syria. Iran is the world's most active state sponsor of terrorism today. Syria is a strong state sponsor of terrorism, including groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. And so there are concerns that these will fall in their hands, or these groups will develop them themselves. I mean, many people are still flabbergasted that Al-Qaeda was able to pull off the attacks of 9/11 like it did. It was a sophisticated operation. They've had other sophisticated operations. So the concerns is they could get help from somebody, or they could do them themselves without anybody's help, and which could make it even more challenging from an intelligence perspective to know that that's what they're up to.
The discussion on WMD streams today at heritage.org. Peter Brooks, Senior Fellow with Heritage, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.